All right, y'all. So I haven't done a digital journal in a couple of days. I just been doing a little sporadic stuff. So I made a little list of some things that I wanted to do. Um, I just saw an article that just came out that talked about the Muskogee tribe, and a lot of Black Americans, freedmen, were actually a part of it. I think they were owned by some of the natives in there, and since they were owned, to my knowledge, and I'll post it later on today, that they were supposed to get citizenship benefits. If you guys remember me talking about the Dawes Act, Dr. Claude Anderson has been talking about it for over 35 years on how a lot of these tribes basically had sided with the so-called five civilized tribes, sided with the Confederate South to undermine us. And, some that owned us was much, much worse and more brutal than others. And some you could kind of marry in and all, so there was a lot of intermingling and intertwining, but a lot of them were slave hunters. So like some of the Creeks and the Cherokees, some of those Creeks and Cherokees were slave hunters. So the Muskogee tribe, I believe it was in Oklahoma. Muskogee, to my knowledge, when Tulsa occurred, I know Neely Fuller talked about this, that he was in Muskogee, Oklahoma, I believe it was, and how they heard about what was going on in Tulsa. And there was black folks from Muskogee that heard about the race soldiers trying to burn it down and annihilate a lot of blacks. So some of them from Muskogee armed up. Some of those were brothers that went to war, armed up and went down there to try to lay the belt down and try to fight. And some people made it back, and some, not everybody did. So that's something that was interesting. I was listening to one of his programs before, and these brothers and sisters had now got citizenship. So they're looking at some constitutional stuff, and they're proud. I don't know. They may be trying to figure out a way to, cause see, once they get citizenship of that tribe, they got to be compensated for certain things too. They have to have the full rights of, and rightfully so, because they denied them of this. So there's an article that I posted, and there's a couple little videos and stuff like that, but I also put my take on this boycott thing that was going on, which I said, well, like, if you don't want to support the business, you just don't support the business, and put that into, a freedman hand or another person that, because ultimately you want good service, right? So it's just like, McDonald's. You don't like McDonald's, go to Culver's or just make your own. You know what I'm saying? Or put it in a black hand. If you don't like that business, just don't go to that business no more. I just had there's a couple different story times that I want to talk about. One of them was recapping a conversation with a black CEO or an executive that I talked to years ago. And another story that I want to cover is I seen this guy with a Ralph Lauren shirt on, ally at work, as they call it. And I was kind of giving him, when I seen it, I was giving him a little story about what that shirt kind of meant when we were coming up. So I want to do a little story on that. Today, let me see what I got on the horizon. That's another story I want to do. I started compiling a list, and I'm still looking at different cameras that I'll probably start looking at within the next 3 months on which one I want to get. But I'm going to keep doing my research because I want to do, my grandma's 90-some years old, and she was like, man, this oral history needs to get passed down. And I was asking her questions about, what she heard and just how she was living, in the 30s and the 40s and all that and stuff coming up, and what was the terms that was used and stuff like that. And I was asking her, I said, when's the first time you heard African American and stuff like that? Did they use that term? And she said, hell no, they didn't use that damn term. You know, they use other words. They use colored, you know what I'm saying, black. That's it. You know, or Negro. You know, they might have used that. So I was asking her, and she was like, y'all need to get these stories so you could pass them down to your kids. And so I said, well, I started writing down a long list of questions. I want to know about Jim Crow. I want to know what her thoughts was 40 acres, reparations, all of that. I want I want the Freedmen experience. I want to know what, you know, the grandparents, you know what I'm saying? I want to know what was going on in Tennessee around that time. I want to know what is our history based on that book that we got from 1768. What do you know? And a lot of stuff she said she forgot. You know what I'm saying? And so um that's super important to trace that. Beyond 1768, I don't think we really got too much. My uncle was working on some things, but I don't know on that side of the family. Now my dad's side of the family, I don't have none of that kind of stuff, but um not that I know of, except for those pictures that I was showing y'all. And I think I'll load those up again. You know what I'm saying? I had them in a video before, but I might load them up again on this CapCut. But one thing I want to say about today's digital journal is paperwork trail. Paperwork trail is important because what people will say and try to do sometimes is they'll say that either something didn't get done or you didn't do this or whatever the case it may be. And I don't delete emails too often. A lot of times I archive them, which is actually a good idea because emails don't take up much space unless there's attachments that are very large, in between 5 megabytes, or I think the limit is 10 or something like that. But you know, generally no attachments. Emails are just text based. So there was a situation where I did everything that lined up and did what needed to be done, and I was kind of getting the feeling that somebody was saying, well, this didn't get done the way it was supposed to be or whatever. And I said, oh, no, we're not going to do that. I went into the email system and I found out exactly what they said. I found out exactly what was said, what I didn't do, and I forwarded to those parties, and I'm like, nope. Because what they'll do, and especially if you're a contractor, they'll try to say, well, this happened and that happened or whatever like that. Some folks might even take credit. I've seen that in some instances and whatever. And that's why I don't do the above and beyond thing, especially when you're, you know, unless you're like it all depends, man. Y'all really you gotta really pick and choose, because one thing you don't want to be is exploited. And a lot of times what they'll do in contracting situations is like, you may not get the benefits of the perma. Okay, for example, I had a conversation with a guy one time and he was breaking it down and he pulled me to the side, like, the same stuff that they do, which ain't supposed to be ethical, they get away with it. But if you do it, it's an issue. You see what I'm saying? So everyone else can throw a dog over the bridge, setting them on fire and throw them over the bridge. But if you do it, hey, let's bring you up on charges. You see what I'm saying? So we were just having that discussion, you know, and we had to kind of code it a little bit because folks is nosy. But we're talking about things that was going on, the things that happened. And he was kind of like, man, it's super preaching to the choir to me. So he kind of experienced it before I did. So it's no surprise. You see what I'm saying? And so keep your emails, keep your paperwork, because these folks play a lot of games, man. It's very, very it's a backstabbing. You know, they do a lot of backstabbing and stuff. They do a lot of it, man. You know, so keep your paperwork. Don't get too involved in politics at work. you'll have the general consensus is to not discuss it. It really boils down, most of the time, it boils down to somebody having something and somebody not having it. Politics is warfare, and usually we're on the worst end of the stick. That's just a historical fact. We're always the punching bag and the sacrificial lambs for all of that. 98% of the time, you know, if people could dig up some bones of ours and use our carrion, they will, and then we'll get shamed if we don't support it. Don't even bother. Well, what do you think about? I don't know. I like the weather. Start talking about food and movies and stuff like that. Avoid that. That's just my recommendation. Avoid it. Because once you do, it puts you in a weird position. Because now, especially if you know a lot, the theory is, well, let's go to him and ask him what he thinks. And before you know it, now you're sitting in a room somewhere. Well, he said this or this happened and this, that, and the third. You can avoid all that. Now, some environments you may think they'll get away with it and people just go ahead and people just normally have that discussion. I'm telling you as a warning to protect yourself from being in that environment. So can't nobody come back and said you said this. You see what I'm saying? It's generally not a good, it's not going to end well for you. Don't go in there talking about what you bought. Don't go in there talking about a house you bought and how much you paid for it. Don't talk about your new motorcycle. Don't talk about any expenses over the price that might be over 40, 50 bucks. Don't talk about large purchases. Don't talk about arguments with your wife, man. Don't do that. I'm telling y'all, don't do it. You gonna lose in the end. I don't care how talented you are. Do not go in there telling your personal business beyond maybe, I like to do books, or, maybe the kids was jumping on the jumpy or whatever. Do not go into details about family members that you don't like. Don't do it. I'm telling you. You in a whirlwind of trouble. You in a big whirlwind. You're gonna get some trouble. And they will have no forgiveness or no clemency on you. And you'll be looking up wondering, well, man, what happened? Because I've seen it. I've always, for the most part, I've kind of avoided that trap. Now, what you're going to be called is you're not integrating with the team because you don't partake in these discussions, or mindless babble. You're going to get that. And that's going to be the main thing, even if you're doing your work. That's going to be the main assault on your character, is that you don't gel or integrate with the team. Because you're minding your damn business, and you might have your headphones on, or you might just be like, okay, I just want to focus. That political environment goes beyond just focus. Well, he's doing his own thing. He's minding his damn business. They don't look at that as that's not a positive. For you, it is. Don't worry about that. Talk about the weather. Talk about the new movies. Maybe a few science topics. Don't get into politics. But what do you think about crime in Chicago? Don't talk about Chicago and crime. Say crime's everywhere. If there was crime on Mars, it could happen. Talk about that. Talk about Mars. See, we don't have no definites on that. We have no definites on Mars. Talk about Mars and space and planets and NASA. Talk about that. Guarantee you, you're going to get either one or two things are going to happen. They ain't going to know what to talk about in that regard. And you're like, well, that's a good question. Or you might say, well, yeah, I think there could be aliens and UFOs. And that's your key point. Talk about that, UFOs. Because see, UFOs is neutral. You start talking about UFOs and shit that they can't even confirm. It's up for grabs. Well, the Pentagon might, it's up for grabs. Well, who did you go for? Hey, wasn't there a solar flare or eclipse? There you go. That brings the conversation beyond the little low level meaningless shit. I'm telling y'all. I'm telling y'all. Start talking about stuff like weather, maybe barbecue or something like. You know what I'm saying? Like, kind of keep it around that. And then if someone does ask you something, you could just say, well, I'm not sure. And that'll keep you layered under the work politic. That'll keep you layered. Because you're thinking that you just having just a normal, innocent conversation because you're knowledgeable about it. And you become one of two things. If you start getting to politics and start talking about race, you become a DEI, a diversity mascot Negro. You become that. You're going to become that. Or you're going to be the controversial dude. Save yourself. You don't want to be either one. Because if you become the mascot, now every time there's an issue that comes up, they're coming to you. And they're not coming to you for information. They have this information. Don't ever think that they don't. They have it. They just want to know what you think. What kind of dude do we got? What kind of sister do we got here? Is he one of those? Just save yourself. It ain't gonna help you. Now, if you do want to be the mascot, it's time for you to name your price. Well, hey, you want me to do this presentation? You want me to do this about the culture? All right, well, you gonna have to chip me off some of that, yeah. Otherwise, I don't feel comfortable. I don't feel equitable. You start using those terms. I don't feel equitable. Yeah, make it equitable. Give me an equitable 150 because you want to get paid for that pain. Yeah, if you want to be aggravated, get the bag. Yeah, I could be the mascot. I need 130. Otherwise, I don't know. I don't know anything about that. But if you want me to be the mascot, you're going to break some serious bread for that. And it probably ain't going to be worth it anyway. It probably ain't. It's probably not. So, but yeah, this is my digital journal, y'all. This, as the brother from Texas told me that one time. I told y'all that story about that dude that came in. The guy came in from West Africa, and he was training. The brother from Texas came in and told me and the brother, he said, man, y'all keep it tight. Keep it tight. Keep it clean. He had to pull the brother to the side. He came in on the, well, y'all are lazy. He said, bro, they going to get you up out of here. You tap dance too much. That's what happened. But he told me and the African brother, he said, man, keep it tight. He said, keep it tight. Do your thing. Keep it tight. That's the term I'm giving y'all. This is what an older man told me. He said, keep it tight. So I'm telling y'all, do the same thing. Keep it tight. So that's going to be the title. Keep it tight. And I'm going to use AI to generate an image.